Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, December 27th, 2022. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change, joined today by the Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports, Steve Wiltfong. As you can see, we are color coordinated in our tattooed garb here. Steve, I hope you had a wonderful holiday with the family. Unfortunately, you were forced to witnessed some just dreadful football last night. I watched with an open eye because I knew you were taking your boys and beautiful wife to the Colts game to see the Chargers play. And man, Nick Foles may have set football back a couple of years for you, but
Still going to start
happy holidays.
games, they said.
Go ahead.
Still going to start the next two games. So Colts positioning themselves well in the Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis sweepstakes. But I wouldn't mind the Colts taking a left tackle as well and going after a franchise-type quarterback in free agency like Lamar Jackson.
It will be interesting to watch. I do think that Indianapolis is a place to watch, people, because you could bring in a quarterback and a coach at the same time, and that opens up myriad possibilities. But Steve is part of our national team, but has been a member here of the family for a long time. And this Tuesday spot used to be occupied. I don't know if people remember this, but for the longest, and really when Bucknuts the Morning Five was built, Tuesdays was Duane with me, and Thursdays was Steve. And Duane Long passed away on Christmas, and it was a loss. Duane was very close to me, and I'm not going to make Steve sit through my personal tribute. I'll do that when he hops off, and that way anyone who's not interested in listening to that and would rather get more football in won't have to listen. But there will be a tribute at the end, and just know that it's a big loss. Duane has, and I'll go into this in detail, but Duane was really a mainstay of the site. So we have heavy hearts. I may be a little bit distracted, but we appreciate Steve being here, even though it's a tough time for us as Bucknutters.
Yeah, it was very sad, and to hear about Duane's passing, enjoyed reading his posts on Bucknuts, and certainly he was one of the big reasons why this website is so fantastic and this community's off the charts. And he was obviously very insightful, and he will certainly be missed. And it just sucks with Ohio State going into the college football playoff. You know, he would have provided some great analysis going into the Georgia game and after. So we know he'll be watching, and so again, thoughts are with his family.
Absolutely, and I'll go into detail and maybe share some. There's certain things you can't say about people when they're living that are interesting and insightful, maybe, that I can share with you guys when Steve hops off here. That'll be fun. But let's talk about recruiting. Now that signing day has come and gone, it's kind of an interesting one for Ohio State. Obviously, not their apex. They did not crush it on the day, and you've also got the context of the Georgia game in the background and the playoffs. So it was a really kind of a tumultuous week. Now that you've had a chance to look back on it, how do you put it in context? You're good at kind of judging things on the whole, and maybe not by the fury of the last 72 hours. So
Right.
Should we be in shambles, or should we be positive?
Well, I mean, it's the number 6 recruiting class in the country, so you tell me. I think it's a pretty damn good haul. You know, you go out and land 4 premier wide receivers that are going to continue to make this offense potent for years to come. Offensive line was a need, and a class headlined by Luke Montgomery, gives Ohio State a terrific offensive line haul. I think that Jason Moore has all the traits to evolve into one of the better defensive linemen in the Big Ten. And then in the secondary, losing Kayan Lee certainly stinks at the end of the cycle, but to go out and get guys like Calvin Simpson-Hunt and Jermaine Matthews and Malik Hartford, I mean, those are guys that have all the traits to become some of the best players in college football at their position. Jelani Thurman is going to be a mismatch at the tight end position. Joshua Mickens has some high upside pass rush traits too. So This is a class that I think, addressed a lot of needs for Ohio State to continue to be one of the best football teams in the country. And then Lincoln Kienholz. I mean, he's a guy that threw for over 4,000 yards as a senior. I believe over 400 yards a game passing. So, a prolific three-sport athlete that perhaps is doing some work to get to Ohio State early. We'll see what happens there.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So we'll see if he's able to, be an early enrollee or not. I think that might be my one news nugget here over the holiday. I don't know if y'all have even been discussing it. That's how much I've been on Bucknuts this week. But
Steve is technically on vacation and is doing this gratis, people. So be thankful.
No, it's no big deal. I enjoy coming on and talking Ohio State with y'all. But this is a class that was one of the best in the country. And so we'll see what happens with Ohio State with the portal, or if they look for a guy or two after for the February signing day. I would think that Ohio State is set up to sign a big time running back in 2024. And, obviously you guys are going into the college football playoff on New Year's Eve. So an exciting week for the Buckeyes.
Yeah. So 2 questions. One, I want you to, I'll get to that in a sec, but do you expect there to be a second wave here of transfers and such when the playoffs are over? I assume guys who are competing for these 4 teams and maybe are keeping their intentions closer to the vest.
Well, I think you have a lot of guys that play for these teams that are doing their part to help their team win these games. And then there's going to be some attrition on all 4 of these rosters, I would imagine, in some capacity. So I think that certainly there'll be some portal moves. I think there'll be some portal moves with a lot of teams that are still playing. Just because you're not in the college football playoff doesn't mean you don't view these bowl games here this week as important for your program. And you put a lot of blood and time and sweat equity in with your brothers that you want to play one more football game with them before going in the portal. So I think there will, I think there will be some more guys going in the portal following what is going to be an exciting week of bowl games here.
This was your first time as the director of recruiting in an NIL signing day extravaganza.
Sure.
A lot of the movement, like for example, Kay Lee flipping to Auburn and some other movement. Did you feel like the movement was NIL motivated, or this was just kind of a same old, relationships kind of deal going down the stretch? Because it does seem like now every time a guy flips, the very first thing everybody says is, "Oh, he got a big check."
Yeah, and for a handful of recruits, it's true. There's a handful of prospects out there that are purely making their decision on NIL alone, and nothing else matters. Maria Rubin and Kelly Wiltfong could be the coordinators, and it just doesn't matter.
I got you.
The biggest check wins. We're front loading on our investment, and who knows? Those guys are commanding top dollar for a reason. They're good prospects, so maybe they'll go wherever they're going and meet their full potential. But I would say the majority of prospects still made decisions based on fit and chance to be developed and play on the biggest stage and all of that. Certainly NIL was a relevant talking point for just about every prospect to kind of get an understanding of it, to understand how they can make money off their name, image, likeness, what college programs are doing to help their athletes, in that arena. So a place like Ohio State, and I had an interesting comment on the signing day show, with Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, those guys were getting thrown money at them. And
they had a decision to make.
Right. And, it may have been others in the class, but certainly those 2 immediately come to mind. And they took what was deferred money, because if you start at wide receiver at Ohio State, you'd be well compensated, obviously with an opportunity to be developed by Brian Hartline, play in Ryan Day's offense, and hear your name called early in the NFL draft. It's proven. It's a very
And
proven.
have success right away.
It's one of the most proven things in college football. I mean,
If not the most.
nothing's guaranteed for anybody. But if you play quarterback for Ryan Day or Lincoln Riley, or you play receiver for Brian Hartline, I mean, it's pretty.
It's tough to come up with another position group like that, though. Like,
Right.
who is it? I mean, Alabama's defensive backs have kind of, at times, not done as well in the pros.
Alabama as a whole,
I get it.
Their NFL
But in
draft.
terms of one position group, I think right now, I think it used to be Larry Johnson's defensive lineman. I think if you had one position group right now, it would be Brian Hartline's receivers.
Well, you could argue Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks for sure.
You could.
And like Heisman, I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to win the Heisman if you're Lincoln's starting quarterback,
Take a shot.
Which in the NIL era is even more special now. I mean, than it even was before.
No, I think every quarterback for Lincoln Riley and every quarterback for Ryan Day since X, they've all been to the Heisman ceremony every year.
Yeah, no, it's pretty remarkable.
Is that good?
That's pretty damn good, I'd say. And so they asked me which Big Ten prospect was the best bet to win the Heisman Trophy on our signing day show, and obviously it's Lincoln Kienholz. I mean,
right.
He's going to go play quarterback at Ohio State, and if he wins the job, he's going to be a Heisman finalist. And I had a chance to even talk to Lincoln Kienholz this week. Man, he is poised. I'm struggling for my words, but
he's got some alpha in him.
He definitely has that. He's
comfortable in his own skin too. By the way, you see him interviewed.
He's got a ton of self-confidence.
Yeah.
So this stage at Ohio State is what he is looking for.
Right.
He's going to come in and shoot his shot, and he's not going to be intimidated. He's not coming in to carry anybody's briefcase. Doesn't give a damn who's coming in behind him. Doesn't care who's in front of him. He's been nothing but the best player on the field in all three sports he's played for his entire life.
Exactly.
And so, we'll see what happens at Ohio State. There's a lot of guys that can say that, but, he's going to be the guy that's going to touch the ball on every play. And, he's got some dual threat to him. And let's not act like Ohio State plucked Lincoln Kienholz away from, a low P5
it wasn't Northern Iowa
or a mid-major. I mean, he was committed to an 11-win Washington team. And I happen to think Kalen DeBoer is one of the best head coaches that people don't know about. Now, 1 year on the Power 5, he did a great job at Fresno State, but Kalen DeBoer was Indiana's OC the 1 year that Indiana was damn good. So I think Tom Allen really misses Kalen DeBoer and what he brought to that football program at IU. You see what he was able to do with Michael Penix with Kalen DeBoer. Good.
Oh my gosh.
Michael Penix without Kalen DeBoer.
That's unbelievable.
So it really goes back to your point on Ryan Day and Lincoln. Like, it's a coach's game, like
especially a quarterback.
Right. And Kalen DeBoer is a good coach.
No, man. That Michael Penix example. If anybody wants to Google that, Michael Penix, you remember, was like the heartthrob of the Big Ten, and then he was literally one of the worst quarterbacks you will ever see play. And now he was back. I think statistically, he may have led the nation in some categories at Washington, which is just an unbelievable roller coaster.
I would suspect that Lincoln Kienholz would be the heir apparent there and have a terrific career at Washington and win a lot of games.
Yeah.
That could certainly happen at Ohio State, where he's going to come now. And I think that was a hell of a late pickup. And Ohio State, Corey Dennis went out there, evaluated him. Recruiting's a marathon, not a sprint. Recruiting's about who you get, not who you don't get. 2023 quarterback recruiting was going to be tough this year. For them to go out and get Lincoln Kienholz, who is a guy that wasn't on everybody's radar because of where he's from. But once you catch wind of him, you're like, this son of a gun's pretty damn good. And
so I think you can sneak into Ohio State's sneak into the stretch, but their recruiting class for a couple of reasons. One is, like you just said, you come from a place that no one's heard of or seen. You're from the Dakotas. And the other way is just to be from Ohio and commit early, so we kind of lose you. I think if Jermaine Matthews lived in Gwinnett County and Lincoln Kienholz lived in Miami, they may have been a little bit more high profile.
Well, they got a chance to be high profile at Ohio State.
Sure.
That's for sure.
They'll
So,
win in the end.
yeah, and we know that Ohio State, they evaluate full game film. There's a lot of schools that say that their evaluation processes are thorough, and they're not. Um, but Ohio State's is, and so these are guys that check the boxes, and now they're in the program, and we'll see how they develop and what they blossom into.
We appreciate Steve stopping by. We're going to let him go. As we said, he did this pro bono for us, and when you know Steve Wiltfong's salary, you know what pro bono means. We hope he enjoys the rest of his holiday. Have a great New Year.
Hey,
Go Bucs.
happy holidays. Happy New Year, guys. Enjoy the playoff game. Thanks for allowing me to come on here and talk football and talk recruiting with you guys. Again, my thoughts and prayers are with Duane and his family and you guys here. And have a good one. Take care. See you, Daniel. See you guys in the next year from the All-America Bowl. I think the dean will be down there, right? So
Yep.
we'll have Fairley
You and the
down
dean
there.
knocking out the bar scene.
Yep. So a lot of burgers with ketchup only. So
Get some ice water going.
We'll see you guys later. Have a good one.
All right. I wanted to spend some quality time here talking about the loss of my friend, Duane Long. And so I had Steve come on here first so that if I got a little tangential and went a little long here, those who maybe would be interested can empathize, and then I'll go down the line here and maybe get some comments from everybody on Duane. So when I came to Ohio in the mid 2000s, I came to build the team sports network for Mr. Bucknuts. It was an independent network of sites who were defecting from Scout at the time. So I wasn't running the day-to-day at Bucknuts then, but my favorite person to follow and chat with was Duane. And he was most unique, is redundant, but he was our most unique contributor in that, first of all, he was a true Buckeye. And I do realize in these parts saying this means something. I'm not sure anybody loved the Buckeyes as much as Duane. And saying that on Bucknuts and, supporting my family through this love for this many years and this site, which is, buttressed many families for many years, that is a strong statement, and I'm comfortable with it. It was like part of his soul. I don't know how many of you guys have worse Sundays and Mondays. We used to call it the Buckeye flu when they lost, which, by the way, isn't very often. And Duane suffered from that as well. When the site first, so after we sold Team Sports Network to ESPN, my gig was gone, and I took over at Bucknuts just individually. And at the time, it was a different time, and the technology of things wasn't as smooth, and there were still a lot of hobbyists involved in the game. And Duane was actually being phased out. He was going to get his own blog called The Long View. Shocker. And we were supporting him in that and getting started. One of the first things I did, and I'm very proud of in my career, was that I brought Duane immediately back, because to me, Duane was part of the fabric of the site. There are certain things I can tell you now that I probably couldn't tell you about Duane when he was here, and that I don't think Duane went to the front page of Bucknuts 10 times in his life. He bookmarked the front row. And there were times when his information flow wasn't as succinct as it needed to be. You guys remember we did the Tuesday shows forever. I would text him in the morning the stories we were going to discuss, because if it did not hit the front row, he really wouldn't be that up on it. And yet he was among the more insightful and honest Buckeyes and devotees of the site. He was also fiercely loyal, and a man of many tastes. For those of you who know, he loved his brown liquor. He loved cigars. Loved his family, obviously. Loved the Buckeyes. But he was truly a unique cat, and he's been around forever. The foundation of this site is an incredible story. Mr. Bucknuts, someone who had the website called Kirk's Football Site. And Mr. Bucknuts thought that was Kirk Herbstreit. So he set up an interview with him to try and get his website started and maybe be a contributor. And it turned out it wasn't Kirk Herbstreit, it was Kirk Larrabee. And I know Kirk Larrabee had the worst interview of all time and left the room. And they're like, let's hire him. And the next person to come on was Duane, and the site has been built out of that. We can't replace Duane. Anybody who dealt with him on an individual basis, and he had relationships via the internet and other ways with a lot of you guys, private messaging and stuff, and you guys have talked about that. I would really encourage everybody to go and read the tribute that Heater wrote for him. It's very impressive. It always strikes me that we never appreciate people as much as we should when they're here, because I'm sure Duane would have loved to read the front row thread with everyone coming in and expressing how much they miss him and loved him. So, I mean, it's a true loss. We lost Gary Hostile earlier in the year. He was a foundational part of the site, but there would be no Bucknuts without Duane. That's just a fact. And he will be missed. I get probably hard pressed to think the Buckeyes will be more inspired than Atlanta because of Duane, but nobody wanted Ohio State to go down there and physically stand up to the Bulldogs like Duane did or would. So it's a huge loss, and I'm not sure what we'll do to replace him. There's no way for us to go find another Duane. I mean, he was a unique dude, man. Like I said, very unique is redundant, but he earned it. And, I would think if we want to pay a tribute to Duane, maybe next time you get a chance, get your favorite brown liquor, maybe a cigar, maybe throw in some blues and sit and think about the loss of Duane. Maybe you want to wake up the next day, and I think Duane would tell you this. Duane was, pretty overweight, and one could definitely extrapolate that contributed to his early, passing. So I'm sure he'd like you to go out and get a couple laps in too. So this was a special dude, man. Like I'm kind of struggling to get across what I really want, but he'll be missed, and Tuesdays won't be the same. They never have been, and I'll miss him. He was a good friend of mine. I love the dude, and he was my favorite guy on Bucknuts. So I selfishly brought him back because I enjoyed his stuff, and I'm proud of that. And the fact that we could be associated with Duane, and that when Duane is remembered, Bucknuts will be a part of that memory for a lot of people, is something I'm very, very proud of. And we will miss him, and we loved him. So see you later, buddy.